This session is designed to be interactive, and we really like to get the input from the room here. All of you are invited here by virtue of your position and your particular role in facilitating the digital transformation, and especially in its acceleration. So whether you're in government or a multilateral organization, private sector or public, we'd value your input. I know one or two people will have to leave before we conclude, and that's fine. But I'd like to call on a couple of people, if I may. First of all, we've been speaking about education, upskilling, digital literacy, inclusion. So perhaps, if I may, I'd like to call first on Dr. Navin Singh of the Orbit Academy. Is Navin, where do we have? Yes, Navin, can we ask for your response, if you were, I'm not sure if you were here for all of the session this morning, but if you could give us your response to what you've heard so far, and perhaps highlight what the Orbit Academy is doing and its role in fostering that transformation and its acceleration.
Thanks, Ian. It's terrible of you to make me speak after Dr. Ilham. Anything I say won't sound half as good. And because whenever he speaks, you get a lot of insights, and speaking after him is not a good idea. I believe that, education and the higher education side of it is the last traditional bastion waiting for disruption. We've already seen it everywhere. And the traditional people always miss the bus in various degrees. And I would preface that by saying that I don't mean higher education institutes like Harvard, SMU, etc., which attract the best talent, do research, engage with industry. That small population of self-motivated learners who go for research, etc., will remain. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the larger mass, second and third tier. Traditional businesses always miss the bus. Banks missed the fintech. Bluebird missed Uber and Gojek. Walmart missed the e-commerce. When disruption happens, it happens because customers get three things, TQM. It's the new service saves them time, it is infinitely better quality, and it saves them money. I'm not batting for EduTech because EduTech doesn't do any of these three fully. EduTech briefly became a need during COVID rather than a want that it is. In its current form, EduTech makes you spend more time after school and college, you come back and study more. Makes you spend more money after your parents have paid the fee, you pay again. The quality of the tutor is the same except that he's better groomed on screen. That's why they're all failing. But what about the universities themselves? Are they giving anything of the TQM? It's worse. If you look at all the sectors that have got disrupted, and if you look at, for us who are 40 plus, there are two things that we pay disproportionately higher money for, healthcare and education. In healthcare, at least if you go in an operation theater, you see all these new gadgets, robotics, etc. In education, you see the same classroom, but you're paying 10 times more. That's the frustration. Then if we look at who is our target audience, the students, where are they? What is their mindset? Martin mentioned that they think we are dinosaurs. He also mentioned something interesting about Indonesians not having enough confidence in Indonesian talent. If you put all of it together and look at our target audience, post-school, pre-work, they are on TikTok. They are doing 1-minute videos. They are interested in dance, drama, learning in 1-minute clips. If you put a 3-minute clip, they fast forward. University systems, except the top quality ones, are doing what traditional businesses did and missed the bus, which is make baby step cosmetic changes. I will add one department here. I have 50 departments, so I made a single point of contact. Which world are you living in? Baby steps, cosmetic changes, thinking that is innovation and thinking that will make them look modern. Or do what Walmart did, get an old man's facelift, go buy Flipkart. These don't work. These don't work, and the traditional business miss it for these reasons, and the response to it is inadequate. And the response is inadequate, for various reasons, right from inertia to incompetence, delusion, denial, whatever you call it. I don't know what the education system will go towards, but the traditional university system is not the answer. It is being rejected outright by our clients, which is the students. University enrollments are at an all-time low across the world. In the US, after 1980s, when it peaked, it's going down. After COVID, it has accelerated. EduTech in its current form is not the answer because it doesn't give the TQM. Something else will come up. I don't know what that is. We are trying in our own way through Orbit, but I'm sure something else will come up. We also are not the complete answer. We will also evolve. Those are my thoughts, Ian. Back to you.
Thank you very much for those thoughts. I think you've really thrown down the gauntlet there in terms of universities. We have a number represented around the room, so there'll be an opportunity to respond. But I take you up on your initial point, and namely that education is one of the last industries waiting for, or perhaps ripe for, disruption, and perhaps the digital transformation and its acceleration will play a part in that. I'm going to come back to your end of the room shortly, but first of all, I'd like to invite Mr. Bayu Prawira. Perhaps, Bayu, you have a role in finance. You've written books on financial inclusion. That's been a little bit about what we've talked about here with James at HSBC and how that inclusion fits into the digital transformation. Perhaps you could give us your response to what you've heard this morning and what you're doing and what your role is in the transformation. Bayu.
Thank you, Ian. So my name is Bayu Prawirahi. Actually, my PhD is in digital transformation, and I'm helping banks, conventional banks.
And I think you're the first PhD in digital transformation, am I right?
Yeah,
for Indonesia.
As far as I know.
Thank you.
So I'm helping banks, conventional banks, turn into digital transformation. Well, if you ask, is it bank lacking in IT? No, bank is always using IT since the earliest IT available. So the question is, why banks are called into this digital transformation in Indonesia after 2020? Wasn't it before 2020, they have already implemented core banking system with IBM IS400 with all these advanced technologies. What did they do? Didn't they do digital already? They did, yeah. What they did was digitalizations. Digital transformation is different than digitalizations. Digitalizations is having digital into your business process, while digital transformation is transforming your business model, not only the process, the business process, but the business model. What is the business model that the banks has to transform? Yeah, you look at in fintech. Yeah, that's the new business model. Yeah. What's the fintechs doing? Fintechs doing of serving people, getting them into financial inclusions. That's why our statistics shows that unbankables in Indonesia, the latest data was 48%, but the financial inclusion is more than 80%. Where the difference comes from? The difference comes from the fintech. So those people considered as included in financial system, in financial system, when their data is already in the system. Some of them went to bank that has been existing for decades, and some of them, the data is in the fintech companies. So that's the difference between why the financial inclusion is different than the bankables. Now, yeah, we'll see that, like Navin said, that education, so the conventional education is not yet changed and it's not relevant anymore. Yeah, I believe it will be a change when the time comes. So the time, everything with the transformation, digital transformation, needs the right time. Yeah. Like we had in the media now we already seen that the conventional media, the printed media, has all gone. I mean, those are surviving is just only a few prints and not as much as before. And it's actually the business model is already dead there. And the business model of the online news is totally different than the conventional news. And then coming the e-commerce. The e-commerce also already disrupting the traditional trading system, the shops. You see malls losing their retail shops. You said, yeah, there's still some existing. Yeah, they are fighting very hard to still exist now, but they are facing really hard times. So now the time is for the bank to have this disruption. And we see to have a disruption, we need not only change in that particular industries, but also the surroundings. I mean, the disruptions in media, disruptions in e-commerce would never be happen if you don't have, the people don't have the smartphones in their hands. You don't have good connections. You don't have the other things surrounding it to support it. Yeah. We in Jakarta, we have seen all the e-commerce that, I'm using Tokopedia, Shopee to buy things every day, and feels that's so easy and so economic, so efficient. But when I went to Kupang, for example, the NTT, and one day I wanted to buy a swimsuit because I planned to go to a cave with a pool there, but I couldn't find sellers there in the commerce. I mean, the sellers there in Java, so I need it now or tomorrow to be sent, not available there. So e-commerce has a much bigger impact in bigger city than those in the small cities. Why? Because the surroundings are more ready in the big cities rather than small cities. So what we have seen is that with everything is getting ready, disruption will come, and the conventional players cannot avoid it anymore. We are seeing now that this queuing for the disruption after the banking, after the financial industry, then the health system, the healthcare, and then the education, right? So we believe that it will come, but maybe now it's not yet to come when the market is not yet disrupted. Yeah. So I would say that digital transformation is the future, a certain future for every industry. Yeah. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. Now is the time for the financial industry to have this digital transformation. And digital transformation is different than digitalization. Many companies think that digital transformation is digitalization. I've already used this, I've already used this, I've already done this. You said I have not yet transformed digital. How come? It's because the business model has not yet changed. And one of the questions that you can answer directly, whether you have changed your business model or not, is whether you have done beyond your core business. So bank that has gone through digital transformation, they will assure that we are beyond banking. Those industries are the insurances that has gone through transformation. Will say, we do beyond insurance. So if they are still doing the same thing in their industry, they don't do it beyond it, they are not doing digital transformation. Bluebird has implemented all the technology to catch up with the project, but the business model is still the same. So actually, they are doing digitalizations, but they are not doing digital transformation. That's why they're still not catching up with the project, with the Grab. I think I'm talking too much. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Bayo. Those are very interesting points that you make. We moved away from disruption and perhaps any of the negatives that that can be inferred from that, and that doesn't have to be a negative, to going beyond. And I think that's a very constructive contribution. Disruption is something that's natural in every industry. We've seen this happening for the last 20 years in almost every industry. But Nalin said education may be the last bastion. You've talked about the financial industry. We had James helping us with comments on that earlier. Let me go to a few more people. Perhaps if I could to Mr. Shiraj Kriplani from IO Connect. Shiraj, could you give us your perspective from the purview of IU Connect? And you're also a member of the Digital Dialogue, so thank you for that. How are you seeing this transformation? And we are making now this clear distinction, I don't think that's lost on anyone in the room, between digitalization and the actual digital transformation. Here we have you on the screen. IU Connect, Shiraj.
Thank you, Ian, and good afternoon to everyone. So I think from our side, IOConnect is an enabler. So we enable a lot of API connectivity between banks and platforms. And we serve about 200 plus platforms in Indonesia, focus only in Indonesia. And what we've seen is, I think what Babayu said, that, you know, business model is very important because we need to understand how to measure transformation. How does it impact, right, at the end of the day? I think going back to what we see, Pa Ilham also, our President Commissioner on IO Connect, he mentioned that financial services is something that's actually being the first gateway. Luckily, regulations and regulators are very, very supportive. Policies are actually bringing towards what is needed to be changed. Going back, I think when we speak about transformation, I feel there is a gap in terms of skills in Indonesia because there are no, when we speak about tech, there are people, but I don't feel like they're at the stage where they can help and understand business processes, operation transformation, how does it implement it. That's the bridge which is a gap in the market. Also, we're seeing, like, if we speak about the gap, I feel is the skilling which is needed, which is industry needs people, but there are also so many people which are actually graduating, coming into the industry, but they don't know where is the match. I think there's a big mismatch around what is required by industry and where people need to skill themselves. We also, if you look at the formal industry, the people who are in the workforce, I think we need to keep in mind that there are 5 different generations in the workforce. So different generations need different kind of skillings. Even people at our age, people at at the age of 50, 60 who are still working as well, still needs to upskill themselves. So I think, again, like, looking at all of those things, and I think AI, again, the use of, going back to some of the topics that we spoke in the morning as well, AI is not here to replace people, but it's supposed to enhance the skills and replace the mundane tasks so that people can actually spend more quality time on what is required to actually bring businesses forward. So, but Indonesia is at least aware on the whole transformation side. Their banks particularly, they are on top of things. They want to get it done. Now the question is, where do they start? What is the industry needed? Where is, like, also some of the topics which was mentioned is that how is the industry behaving? And that's where players like us, IOConnect, comes in and tells the bank also, hey, the market is moving like this, fintechs are behaving like this, you should also start to play around and maybe we can facilitate some of these APIs and bridging that's needed. Maybe that's all I can share. Back to you, Ian. Thank you.
That's a great deal that you've shared. So thank you very much for that and for the role that IO Connect is playing here. I'd like to expand this to other services who are key to the digital transformation that we may see on a daily basis. Do we have Samir with us? Samir Bhatt from Amazon? No? Okay. In that case, I'll go to my next speaker, and that's to draw things out away from Indonesia a little bit. Indonesia is the largest economy in the ASEAN group. It's been the chair of the association for this year, recently passed that across to Laos. We have with us today Mr. Ashish Kapahi of the ASEAN Economic Forum. I'd like to hear your views, we all would, Ashish, on where you see Indonesia vis-a-vis the digital transformation in the place of ASEAN, and how you see that greater piece with that enormous digital economy that's growing in that group of nations. Drawing that down into Indonesia, could you give us your perspective, please, Ashish?
Thanks, Ian. I usually like to start off with stories, but I'm just thinking of an appropriate one for this particular forum. See, one of the things we've got to understand is that ASEAN as a region is very diverse culturally. And when we talk about digital transformation, we're all looking at very futuristic technologies here. One of the things, and I keep emphasizing on this again and again, is that we have to keep coming back to our own cultures and understand that how do we mix digital transformation, or how do we embed it in the current culture that we have. See, for any technology to take off and to make it successful, it has to be an inherent part of the culture. I think it was Dr. Ilham said something interesting. He said we are between two different cultures here. Did he say culture, or he said forms of governance? So we are between the US and we are between China. Now, it is very important that while we are between them, we don't lose our own cultural identities. We take the best from them, but we retain what is ours. And if digital transformation can be embedded in the systems that we have, then it's the best way to go. So you're not changing the identities of people. And I mean, I'll give an example of, we're talking about e-commerce and we're talking about disruptions. I personally believe that there are disruptions that can happen, but that can happen within the structure of the societies. You don't have to necessarily break the structures of the society. Now, in that aspect, while ASEAN is one, we have to understand that there are sensitivities within ASEAN that one has to embrace as you move forward. And keeping those in mind and moving forward is important. Now, coming back to the structure of governance, see, one of the things we have to understand is ASEAN, and in fact, this part of the world, has not really embraced democracy in true Western form. If you actually look at it, because we are not modern democracies. If you look at us here, we are cultural democracies. The form of democracy or governance we've had it for thousands of years. And that's important. So one small point that I want to make about digital transformation, and I think everybody's an expert here and everybody's said everything, is that while we transform, let's not forget our cultural identity. And from an ASEAN perspective, it's not any one country that is going to lead the digital transformation. It's a mixed bag, and everybody will have a different set of expertise. And if we can draw down on the expertise and balance it out, then we will have a true form of digital transformation. I actually don't even want to call it digital transformation. It's transformation as economies and transformation as people, and that's, I guess, more pertinent here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Now we've gone beyond digital, in fact. We've removed the word from the phrase itself. So thank you very much for taking it a step further, not just into ASEAN, but into a new concept. So thank you very much for that, Ashish. It's very useful to have the context of ASEAN and Indonesia's place within it. Staying within industry, perhaps I could call on Alin Saxena, Sales Director at PT Tech Mahindra, Indonesia. Alin, if we could have your perspective on how you might respond to the comments you've heard around the room this morning from your company's purview, and how you see your place in this transformation, let's call it that.
Thank you, Ian. So, I feel the race has just begun to reinvent, modernize, and disrupt the data, technologies, people, processes, operations, right, in the institutions and organization. If I see, and if I recall, digital transformation was also a priority issue in the G20 presidency, right? One of the priority issues, right? So, digital transformation is taking the world by storm, right? In terms of technology trends like Gen AI, blockchain, metaverse, edge computing, low code, no code, right? But what I feel is like the technology is not transforming, right? It's the technology which is transforming us, the institutions, the organizations, right? And if you see, in last 10 years, IT and technologies were like focused towards how the way people work, right? But now it's more focused towards the transformation on the businesses. How do the business become more modernized, right? What Bapa, you also mentioned, right? So also if you see, in a couple of years when the digitalization started, the acceleration of digital economy kicked off, right? Before that, it was always the big which is beating small, right? But now it is the fast who is beating slow, right? So on this perspective, it becomes a very critical scenario where everyone wants to be on the same curve of the transformation. But the thing is how you keep up with that curve in terms of understanding your own process, your operations, and on which point of view the curve has to be matched with the internal requirements, right? So that's my view. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alin, for helping us with how this is impacting your business and taking that forward. Perhaps let's pull back from business and industry and look at this from a government perspective. In fact, the US government, USAID, we're pleased to have Jeff Cohen with us here today. Jeff, you're overseeing at least 3 projects, I understand, that are in the space of the transformation using digital technologies. Could you give us your perspective on Indonesia's transformation, and then perhaps your broader comments on how you see this more widely? Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you all for your comments and thoughtful participation today. One of the things that struck me from the very beginning, from the participation from the Ministry of Education and then through all the discussions, especially Dr. Navin today, is that there are great ideas, but what we're missing is how do we get to scale? If Indonesia, and I've heard this number many different times, one of our partners, AWS, that's working on upskilling university students in cloud computing, the 600,000 new employees, IT skilled employees every year, well, if the government is only tracking 200,000, and that's a recent number, then there's this gap that gets bigger and bigger and bigger every year. And this is a missed opportunity for Indonesia's digital transformation and future economic growth. So what is being done to address the scale issue? And while individual universities and companies can engage with ITB or IPB or BINUS or the small subset of institutions that are a little bit more forward-leaning and understand how to engage with universities to build programs that match industry, the upskilling needed, and the students, we're still only getting a small scale for what's actually needed in Indonesia to actually make the next moves into a digital transformation space. And so, Nalin mentioned those second and third tier institutions. why are companies not working at scale with the Muhammadiyah system or the NU systems? These are systems that touch larger numbers of university students all across the country and don't require students to travel to Bandung or Bogor or Jakarta. And I think that if Indonesia is going to make that leap, you have to find those nexuses. From Detroit, my English is always challenged. But what about in Pontianak, right? What about in Makassar? What about in Ambon? And another part of this, and I think AWS recognizes this, and all companies should, is you need to skill those local government officials, whether they're elementary school teachers or the accountant at the kabupaten or the district. You know, those folks need those skills. The transformation is not Jakarta-based, right? Just as you said in Kupang. You know, where are the folks upskilling people in Kupang so that they can start up their digital e-commerce company? And so I think that, you know, the Ministry of Higher Ed or the Ministry of Education has a purview here, but we also need to make sure that we're getting out beyond just the ivory towers in Jakarta and start working out in the field across Indonesia, whether it's Papua or Aceh or Sumatra. And, you know, USAID, our programming is a small subset. If we're going to upskill 60,000 laborers in cloud computing, well, that's not enough. And so we certainly can't do it alone. And I think, you know, matching industry with universities with the students is the right methodology, as Dr. Navin said. And we have a partner, ASU, which is a leader in this around the globe. But it's going to take a lot more, right? It takes every industry, healthcare, it takes education, it takes, you know, everyone has to play a role in order to get to scale. And I think there needs to be the push from government and the pull from the private sector in order to make it happen. I think that's probably enough for me, but know that USAID and the US government is here to be a partner in these endeavors, and we hope that, I'll say one last thing. You know, scale also is needed in the higher education space. We talked about scholarships, and there was mention yesterday, I was in the political discussion over lunch about LPDP. Indonesia has its own resources to invest, and we found out yesterday that the government is only providing 60% of the scholarships available with the funding. Well, there it is right there. There's the funding to set up, you know, the scale needed. LPDP is the government's endowment of $10 billion and grows every year. And utilizing those to send people around the country and around the world, you know, it can't be 2,000. It's not going to have the impact, the needed impact. It needs to be 100, 200, 300,000 students a year from a country of 280 million need to leave the country, get the skills, because it's not just the skills. You know, Nalan was very critical about, you know, university systems, but there also is a cultural growth, maturity aspect of universities that should not be discounted. And sending students overseas is probably one of the best things you can do for a culture because they bring back new and better ideas. And Indonesia needs to tap into its programs that already exist and do more. And I think that industry and universities can push LPDP and the government to use the resources it's already identified and send 100, 200, 300,000 Indonesians overseas to bring back those skills to Indonesia. I'll stop there.
Thanks very much, Jeff. I think you've just thrown down the other gauntlet there in terms of sending those exchange students overseas. We couldn't agree more, I'm sure. Another industry which is working very fast within the digital transformation is the insurance industry. These are financial services, non-banking. We're very pleased to have with us today Naresh Krishnan, who is the CEO of Principal Insurance Indonesia. Naresh, I hope I got that right. Naresh, could you give us your perspective from your industry and your own personal views on this transformation that we're seeing?
Thank you, Ian. I just wanted to make a small correction. It is Principal Asset Management, and we are in investment management business, not in life insurance.
Thank you.
But of course, I've been in the Indonesian life insurance industry as well as investment management industry. So first of all, I want to thank everyone for this wonderful opportunity to be here and listen to all the expert view on the topic. So the capital market and the financial services industry has seen clear acceleration, especially post-COVID, we have seen some unbelievable changes taking place in the industry. I think prior to COVID, the number of Indonesians having securities account was a minuscule. Now post-COVID today, I think this has grown by 10x, if I'm not mistaken. Almost 12 million individuals are holding securities account in Indonesia. So clearly, we have seen some spectacular growth thanks to the digital capability that has been brought into the industry. And it is making some transformative changes to the overall markets and behavior. So if you look at the retail ownership of, let's say, the Indonesian equity market, you can see that over the last 10 years, we have seen today we have the highest amount of retail participation in the equity market. The same thing we are seeing in the bond market as well. So if you look at the domestic retail ownership of government securities, both Sukuk as well as government securities, once again, we are seeing the highest ownership today in the last 10 years. So clearly, we are seeing lots of transformational changes coming in. But that also brings in a wide range of challenges, So to take this growth further, I think for us, the God player is basically the regulator, you understand now. So I think when I listen to the entire forum today, in terms of technology, in terms of innovation, in terms of capability, I think there is a plenty available. There is a lot more that can even brought to play. But how are we going to leverage and how are we going to use it to further the ambition of digitalization? For our industry will solely be with the regulator. The regulator is going to decide the make or break for the traditional financial services industry. It also brings a very different set of challenges for us, correct? So the so-called stalwarts of the financial services industry are used to traditional brick and mortar models, and they are financially strong, and they are the backbone of the entire economic activities. Now, all these institutions, I think we just heard the disruption is here. So eventually all these institutions will disappear. If this AI and the digital capability come into play the way people are expecting, we are facing a Kodak moment for the traditional players in the industry. So I think that also has serious implications that needs to be very well thought through and ensure that the stability of the institutions and the protection of the consumers are appropriately taken. So from our perspective, we love everything that is going on, and we see that this trend is going to continue, and all of us are only, my joke is like, I'm used to speaking to people, now I need to reskill myself so that I learn how to speak to the camera. That's a reskilling that is taking place at this particular point in time. Clearly, I think there is a lot of regulatory changes that will be needed to continue with this acceleration of digitalization. With that, I'll take a pause and give it back to you.
Thank you very much for that, Naresh. Very valuable comments. And from an established and growing industry in Indonesia, perhaps let's take the temperature of the water now for industries and companies, digital, seeking to enter Indonesia. We're pleased to have us with us today, Seema Sunghai, legal consultant at SRSP. Seema, perhaps we could get your perspective on how attractive the market is for digital companies and what you're doing to facilitate them in their entry into Indonesia. Seema.
Good morning, everyone. As introduced by Ian, I'm Seema. I've been here for over 16 years, and I'm seeing the transformation and companies coming into Indonesia in the IT sector in the recent past. The interest is large. A lot of companies coming from India are looking at investing in the IT sector because they see the market. There's a huge market there. And as legal consultants, we help them in the incorporation on the licensing part, on the restructuring part, and also, on the other aspects of the IT sector. Some of the challenges we face as users of the digitalization is one aspect, and the other aspect is helping our clients in entering the market. There are two aspects to it. So the interest is large. The interest to come into this sector is huge, immense, and the regulations are not very tight at the moment for IT sector. It's quite liberal in that sense. But as a user, there's a huge challenge that we face, that the system that has been implemented across Indonesia, there is still a lot of scope for integration, improvement, acceleration, and understanding of the issues that the user faces so that it can be addressed quickly because one of the issues that as a user, as a lawyer, as a user of the system is addressing the issues that the system that has been implemented or has been put in place by the government or the various sectors. There's a huge scope for improvement there. Sometimes I wonder whether the digitalization is there to facilitate and expedite the process, or it is actually, I'm sure you understand what I'm saying, right? Is it a hindrance for us to, cater to the market? So yeah, that's been my experience, Ian. So there is a huge market. There's a huge market, and there's a lot of interest. I have seen in the recent past a lot of tech companies coming from India. They are helping everyone, vertical, horizontal sectors in digitalization and acceleration. The interest is huge, but the challenges that we face as users are also equally very challenging. So as much as the interest is there to digitalize, I think there should be enough commitment to understand the need to resolve the issues that a user faces, and it should be quick, instant. Otherwise, it really defeats the purpose of digitalization. That's my view.
Seema, thank you very much for that. And I think we are starting to appreciate the challenges of the legal environment, which you indicate is still very liberal around these new and emerging technologies. That has its advantages and its disadvantages. Certainly in the space of e-commerce, we're seeing the regulatory environment very much playing catch-up with the industry, which is moving too fast for Indonesian law to match, and therefore some major players are slipping through the gaps. I'm sure they'll be back. But that's an example of where the regulatory environment is perhaps still lacking the acceleration to meet the demands of this transformation. We'll come back to law in a moment because we also have another representative legal from Christian Theo and Partners. But I'd like to stay with startups in investment for our next speaker. I'd like to ask Avalo Roy, Managing Director of Kolkata Ventures. You're very famous, I understand, sir, for helping to initiate these startups in India. What can we do to initiate startups in Indonesia? And with you being here, how can we help to facilitate the acceleration of the transformation in Indonesia through your services, sir?
I think what really inspires people is to see examples, right? When we see young entrepreneurs coming up and being successful, who are not very different from the rest of the people their age, they feel, oh, if he or she can do it, I can do it too. So I think to create those first few examples, there needs to be education, there needs to be resources, and the universities are providing that. But when I say education, I don't mean education in the form of theoretical knowledge, but actually hand-holding them with the help of established entrepreneurs, taking them to the next step. When I was studying at Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago, I had the great fortune of getting the best and brightest entrepreneurs from Chicago who were guiding me not only through knowledge and wisdom, but also connecting me with the right lawyers, helping me figure out the marketing strategy, helping me figure out how to go to China and ask the right questions when I need to take care of mass manufacturing. So those were 10 minutes and 15 minutes of nuggets of wisdom and connections that saved me years of struggle and years of banging my head against the wall. And I think that's what Indonesia needs. We have perfectly intelligent people. We have great universities. We have resources. But we need good examples. And to create those examples, we need to handhold them through the process. And if we can have a few companies that have crossed that threshold, where they become well-known entities, which is very, I shouldn't say very easy, but easier in the digital economy, in the digital system, rather than the traditional world that we have seen in the past. Then in the next 5 years, we can have a goal of creating 30 such companies that really create, several, in several industries. We were just speaking a few minutes back that what's happening here, there are so many people with cell phones, 1.3 cell phones per person, and yet banking, it seems to be underserved. And what we saw in India was our Prime Minister first made sure that people have access to banks. Then there was these companies like Paytm and other companies, fintech companies, that came in and completely disrupted the system, beat against the 40, 50, 100-year-old companies. And I think that's what's going to happen in Indonesia. And as Kolkata Ventures, as myself, as the group we have come from India, would love to support that system, love to handhold these entrepreneurs, give them the resources they need, show them the success stories that we have figured out in India, and so you don't have to make the same mistakes that we did, and thereby expedite your progress and take you to the next level.
Thank you very much for that, and that's a very impressive bio you have in your own tech startup career there with 5,200 jobs to your credit. So thank you for that. Lessons to be learned for Indonesia with your support. I'm hoping that many will also benefit from those lessons. I'd like to come back to our two earlier trigger speakers in a very short while, if I may. But first of all, to turn to the legal fraternity once more, we have Glenn Wijaya from Christian Theo and Partners. Glenn's joined us at every digital dialogue session that we've had so far. So Glenn, we've had the benefit of you in the room and would like your perspective, having listened to Seema, the challenges of law and the regulatory environment. Any perspectives you can share with us from your legal standpoint or other?
Right. Thanks for the opportunity. In terms of legal or the regulatory framework, I think it's in the past few years, we've seen huge rise of numbers of new regulations and laws in terms of laws that try to accelerate the digital economy. For example, in the data privacy sector, we've seen the data privacy law, and we are still waiting for the implementing regulations. And also there's, we expect to have a new statutory body to implement the data privacy law. So that's a huge positive note that the government is really taking steps to address the cybersecurity risks and data privacy, data breaches. And also on the AI side, we're seeing that the government is also taking care of that. They're now trying to draft a guidelines on the use of AI. Although it's far from what we would expect, we probably expect something like in the form of a law that would have more power in terms of compliance rather than guidelines. But that's still a positive development rather than having no regulation at all. And also, we're expecting the electronic information and transactions law to be revised because it's a very large, it's a very overarching law, and I think it's one of the backbones of the digital economy. So we need to get the right EIT law to head into a right direction. And for legal consultants like myself, I think one of the challenges is first to help clients to understand the law. Because in recent years, there are so many new laws and regulations from the top level to the regional level to specific sector level. It's really hard to understand what the regulator wants and how can we comply with the law. So that brings me to my second point, which is the compliance costs. So many licenses, so many licensing applications. Sometimes we don't know whether the deadline is really a deadline or it's something that can be negotiated. And I think in one of the discussions, I heard about the sandbox regime. That's a very encouraging development in terms of fintech and other innovative digital innovations under OJK and BI. That's really positive. But then with the compliance costs, you know, so many licenses, so many processes, so many stages, sandbox, and then after sandbox, you need to go to the full-blown supervision under the regulators. And then what's more concerning is not just about the laws and regulations relating to specific sectors of the digital economy, like the EIT law and data privacy law, but also the general investment regulations and the, I think the judiciary. That's what we are concerned of, I think. And although President Jokowi has liberalized some of the sectors for investment in 2020 under the omnibus law of job creation, but then we need to see whether the upcoming president election will you know, we'll have a new president coming and he'll set the sectors to be liberalized or to be closed off to investors. So that's something that we should take a close watch on. I think that's all for me.
Thanks very much for that, Glenn, for the legal perspective. I think the presidential candidates all have now released their information on where they see the digital platforms and their support for them, whether it's in support for digital startups through funding or the rollout of technology across the new development zones across the country, et cetera, et cetera. That's all now emerging into the public domain. We had a very vigorous discussion over the course of the last more than 1 hour. I'd like to draw things to a narrower close in terms of conclusions by returning to our trigger speakers, if I may. Martin Topolowski, we've had the benefit of the last hour and your own comments earlier. Anything you could say, anything further you could contribute based on the contributions of all of our friends around the room?
Well, I wish I'd met the guy from Calcutta Ventures a few years ago, because he could probably have taught me what not to do. Because starting deep
still
tech...
Still time, Martin, still time.
Well, yeah, I know, but spent money now, you see. I mean, but yeah, I mean, when you're starting like deep technology companies here, there is a lot to learn because it's kind of not been done before very often. And you have to learn by mistakes sometimes, right? You target the wrong clients, you maybe don't sell it the right way. So there's so many things that experience teaches you. And there hasn't been substantial investment into the deep technology space here because probably that case. You know, venture capitalists don't usually want to pay for research. It's easier to plug and play a quick solution. And I think, you know, that's another thing that when we look at like the Meriputty Fund, I think it would be, which is the state-owned new venture capital, I think it would be great if it invested substantial capital into deep tech, partnership with the universities, things like this, where Indonesia has some products of its own. So in 10 years' time, as you said, there's 20, 30 companies producing Indonesian software and deep technology like China has done itself. But as people have said around this room, there is lots of challenges, the gap in the skill set, also a lot of the regulatory issues, getting things done quick, the pushback from the regulatory, pushback from the outdated business processes. So no one doubts the opportunity. I think me and Thompson face very similar issues. What we're offering is not cheap, and we have to really show value to the client before we can get substantial buy-in. We've luckily got that now with companies like Astra Group, but that process took lots of falling down, mistakes, falling down, and learning. So I think people need to take that risk, I guess, and take a leap of faith, and then I think there'll be a lot more improvement, and I think more and more people will start to see the value of full digital transformation, as the gentleman said.
Martin, thanks very much. It's been great to have you with us to help guide this conversation this morning as someone who is very squarely in the field of this digital transformation. We look forward to see where this journey takes you in the new year and onwards. And don't worry about the challenges, Martin, because that's what the digital dialogue is for. We'll take care of all of that through the course of the next year. Perhaps, if I may, turn to Thompson Wangsuwijaya. Thompson, again, having the benefit of the room and more than 75 minutes of conversation now and other speakers, anything you care to contribute further to the conversation?
Yeah, I think for the digitalization is real, whether we digitalization or transforming digitalization, which one you want to go. It's quite a long way for Indonesia to go, but it's quite a good opportunity for us to go there. My company also trying to trigger private sector or the some of institution to use our RFID, so it'll be more easy to do the tracing as well. It's good to go from one part to another part. Yep.
Thanks very much, Thompson. I must say, when I first met you, it was less than a year ago, I thought you were in a very exciting space and a bit of a pivotal space in terms of this technology, and you still are. And as a leader in the RFID market, as Avery Dennison, I think we're going to see much more coming out of your space in the course of the next year and period. I'm going to call on Sachin in just a moment to give us some additional comments, but I'd like to ask if there's anyone around the room who hasn't been given an opportunity to speak. I'd like to hand the mic to you. If you'd like to identify yourself and your affiliation. I think I met you earlier. And then give us your contribution before we move to rounding up.
Good morning, everyone. Myself, Vikram Motwani. I am the founder of Edgo Cards, and we are on an e-mobility business, and we are making electric cards for different resorts and hospitality businesses. So my view and my point of view on this digitalization, first of all, if I talk about Indonesia, what I studied with ChatGPT or AI, what they figured out is 97% in Indonesia, domestic employment is provided by SMEs, right? We talk about digitalization, top-notch companies, they can digitalize themselves easily. They can skill their team. They can do anything with the money. But if we figure out that the major, the input of GDP in Indonesia, if we figure out is SME at 61% of GDP in the country. So first of all, if we talk about India, what we figured out is there a shop seller is also using QR code. He is digitalized. So on my point of view is, first of all, we need to look at SMEs from the ground level. Then we can start, big companies, they can do research, they can do everything. But for digitalization, SMEs, we need to focus on SMEs. And one more point might be out of the topic I talk about. We need to train SMEs to do research and development. As I am from a tech background, so what I figured out is 20 years back, if you talk about world largest economies, what they were not doing much research and development. But in last 20 years, if you talk about Google, Apple, or all the brands in 90s and in 2000, they were very small SMEs. But when they implemented research and development in their system, and continuously they are doing it. So now you know, everybody knows about Apple and Google. So in here, in Indonesia, 97% domestic employment is provided by SMEs. So we should focus digitalizing them first. We should train them first, because I was in lectures, I used to give vehicle dynamics and electric vehicle lectures in India across 50 to 70 universities. I talked to the people. I have talked to universities also. Because what I figured out, there are bright students passing from the colleges, but they are not getting jobs. The reason is, top companies, they hire from the top colleges. Now we have SMEs, those are having the job to hire the people. But they are not upgraded, they are not digitalized, they are not doing research and development. So engineers passing or IT people passing from the industries, but they don't have companies also. Because when I was having words with many students in the universities, even the professors, they say that our students, they are very skillful. They are getting top-notch percentage. They are participating in many automotive events and IT. They are doing very great. So the last option, either they have to start their own or get a very low-pay job. So first of all, from my point of view, we should force SMEs to digitalize or to do the thing out of the box. Then only any country, any nation, we can take an example of China. 20 years back, they were 1 trillion economy. Now they are 8.3 trillion. If we talk about America, they were 16 trillion. Now they are 27 trillion. So the reason in 20 years, what they differently did from other part of the world. If you see, China has registered more than 1 million patents in last 20 years. So this is the part of research. And this is done by SMEs. Because many friends from China, I asked them how different your industries are from India. Because we were into die molding industry, design and die molding of the. So what we figured out that their government, they are supporting, means what he told me that they need to invest only 10%. 90% they are getting funding from the government, either from the villages. They are SMEs. So that's why we can see the boost in every department in research or growth and digitalization. If I say in India, what we figured out, like Mr. Roy said, that the government, what they are doing, they are giving QR code to shop sellers, roadside vendors. So they are getting digitalized and they are upgrading their lifestyles, right? So this is my call on this point. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for that, Vikram. I think we all recognize the lack of R&D budgets in all companies, whether it's SMEs, SOEs. It seems that the only ones with a major budget in innovation R&D are those major platforms and the benefits they're bringing to the industry as a result, and it's something that's essential and a major part of education. I think what you say about the role of SMEs is a good fit for Indonesia. We've seen a lot of success in some of the local governments, West Java in particular, with agriculture and e-fisheries, even at the individual level, where the smartphone becomes not just the instrument of communication, but the actual instrument and deliverer of the work itself. So we are moving across to a new phase in that transformation here, but thank you very much for that contribution. I'd like to move across to Sachin, if I may, before we return to Dr. Navin and then Jim Castle. Sachin, round us up, please, if you would, on your reflections of the course of the morning.
Well, thank you, Ian, and very interesting conversation from the morning. I've been following it and connecting it to what we discussed yesterday. Yesterday, we talked about the digital economy has a potential to be at $170 billion in the next 6-7 years, which is an 18-fold increase. You know, so how do you get to an 18-fold increase in 6 years? That's a huge challenge. And I don't see that happening unless we are able to take whatever we are doing here at the urban level down to the regional level. And I think one of the benefits of digital dialogue program that I've been working with Ian and with Jim with the Indonesia Economic Forum is that we have two parts of that program. The first part is the dialogue, which is we are part of the dialogue right now. But what's the use of having a dialogue if you don't have something actionable? So we have designed something a few months ago, which we plan to implement in 2024, which is the business outreach part of this. So how digital dialogue members are like a consortium of technology companies that can go into the regions. Our plan is connected very much to the 2024 election cycle, because as soon as that is over, we would be going and working with the bupatis and the wali kotas and the governors of taking a pre-packaged digital transformation package service of maybe 5 or 7 companies within digital dialogue can get together and take an offering directly to the bupati to implement into their regions. And that is actually something actionable that we can do because there's a multiplication factor there. SMEs are the biggest target. I'm glad that point was made just before me. That is the segment. Not only do we have to train them and skill them, which we can in the process of implementing a technology, right? Do we go to them with an education program or do we go to them with a business solution? If you go with a business solution, they will automatically have to learn how they can manage that technology and integrate it into the local economy. So I think we need to go with that kind of an approach where there is an outcome-based outreach, and having a consortium of 5 to 7 companies from Vision Digital Dialogue would be a great way for us to have a copy-paste model, because you need something that can be replicated across 416 kabupatens. You know, that's a big number. I'm not saying we go to all 416, but can we get to 100? If we get to 100, that's an immediate amplification or a force multiplier for every technology company in the room here. So we have to start thinking of being able to implement, not just talk about things, not just highlight issues, opportunities, problems, because where do we actually implement is in actually having an actionable outcome program. So only a programmatic approach can be done, and IEF is very proud to be able to work with the government. We have a very good outreach with the Indonesian government, with the various ministries. Once we put a program together, let's say in the next 2 months or 3 months, we'll be able to take that into the regions. The timing is not now because obviously there's an election cycle going out into the regions, but that's exactly a force multiplier point. As soon as we have a new governor or a new bupati or a new wali kota in place, he has a job to deliver the election promises that he has made. And we might be able to use that as a timing. Somebody else mentioned that timing is everything. I think Dr. Bayu, you said that timing is important, and I think that's the kind of timing. We need to find something that would be a trigger that will allow us to take this and go towards that 18-fold kind of opportunity that exists in front of us. So thank you. I think, Ian, I got a lot of homework to do here, and I think the inputs from this session has really helped me crystallize my thoughts also around how we're going to design the program. We have Pa Refli here from IKN that is also connected to the Nusantara hub that is being set up, and there are opportunities opening out there as well. And we'll be able to look at it in a very holistic way as we go into 2024. Thank you.
Ashin, thank you very much for that. We've had a very, very good, wide-ranging discussion over the course of this morning, from education to industry to trade to banking and financial inclusion, innovation, technology, government and government services, the legal and regulatory environment. As Sachin said, there's a great deal of homework to be done. I'm looking very much forward to getting out in the field and bringing our membership in the digital dialogue to those regional governments and offering services to them. So for me, this has been a very fruitful session this morning. I'd like to thank you all for having been with us. As we draw to a close, I would like to invite Dr. Navin Rajagobal, our keynote speaker this morning, to perhaps give us a few closing statements before I pass the mic to Jim Castle. Dr. Navin.
Thank you, Ian. I agree with you. It's been a fascinating, informative discussion. I want to thank everyone for that. Just some final thoughts. I want to thank Pak Nalin for equating, putting SMU in the same category as Harvard, which is an absolutely accurate description. Thank you. On a serious note, I want to say that universities, if they are working well, shouldn't be the last bastion of anything. They should be at the forefront of whatever we're trying to accomplish. As somebody mentioned, there might be resources available and partnership opportunities available. So it's more of a mindset change to some extent, rather than the lack of resources. So that is important. Another observation is that no one institution or sector has the solution. If you want to accelerate digital transformation, education, upskilling is important. Working with SMEs is important. Working with the big companies is important. And also the government and public sector and so on. So partnerships, collaboration, and forums such as this that encourage such kind of discussion and collaboration also very important. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Navin, for those reflections. As we draw to a close, it's only right that we ask Jim Castle to give us some closing comments, and then we have a small presentation for our key speakers today. Jim, you really initiated this digital dialogue, and it was way before COVID. We couldn't really implement it at the time, but thanks for doing that. Could you give us your reflections on how you've seen perhaps the course of today and also the digital dialogue sessions that we've held prior to this?
Well, thanks very much, Ian. This is a great day for me to see the idea that we had some time ago move forward. I was thinking as we were progressing through the program, when I participate in these things, I'm often a knowledge provider. In this one, I'm very much a student. And then with what Dr. Navin said, I think we're all students in this. Nobody has the key. We all have to work together. So if Castle Asia, Indonesian Executive Forum, SMU are able to provide a bridge going forward, this is just exactly what we need. And as Dr. Navin said, it is exactly what we need. So I want to thank Dr. Navin. I want to thank, of course, Professor Nizam, who is not with us. He's in Singapore. Also, James Elwes of HSBC, Martin from Bumi Varta, and, of course, Thomas from Avery Dennison for leading the way today and opening the door for a very dynamic discussion. I'm very excited about this, what I call the kickoff quarter for the program. I think we have a lot of good days ahead of us. I think in a couple of years now, some of us will be saying, you know, I was at those early meetings. I was in at the beginning of something that could become very special for all of us. So I just, again, want to thank our resource people for their comments, but also all of you for your input. It's been a wonderful dialogue today, and I think we can keep this going. Thank you very much. I look forward to many such events in the future. And terima kasih banyak. Thank you.
Jim, thank you very much. Over to the IEF staff. Sharon Olia, we have a small presentation. Jim, I think you're going to do the honors, if you would. Olia, first we have a certificate for Dr. Navin Rajagobal, please, if you would.
Well, Dr. Navin, on behalf of all of us, terima kasih banyak.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Navin, and for being with us today. And we have a certificate for Mr. Martin Terpolowski, Bumi Varta Technology. I think you've met before. Thank you very much, Martin, for being with us. Thank you. Did we get the photo? Very good. Thank you, Martin. And is it Thompson? Thompson Wangsuajaya. Thank you. Avery Dennison. Thompson, thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being part of this session, and thank you, Ian, for a wonderful moderation. A big round of applause for Ian. So we have lunch served here, out at the gallery here, as well as you are welcome to come into the room if you would like to continue to network. We have another session in the afternoon at 2 o'clock, which is about the regional economy. It's a different set of speakers and a different set of participants as well. But if some of you would like to stay on to that, you're welcome. You just let Ciara know. And we would be finishing the second day today by around 5:36 with a sundowner cocktail in the lawns. Hopefully there won't be rain. And that would complete the 10th Economic Forum this year. So thank you very much, and look forward to chatting with you out at lunch. Thank you.